Recorded live at the 2022 NACDA Convention in Las Vegas, this is From the Chair. Here is your host, Mike Hamilton.
All right, welcome into today's episode From the Chair. I'm your host, Mike Hamilton. We have been in Las Vegas recording From the Chair with some folks that we've had the opportunity to interface with in the hallways, and it's been great to sit live with folks, and it's a real honor and pleasure for this episode to visit with my longtime dear friend, Joan Cronan, the Athletic Director Emeritus at the University of Tennessee.
It's a great time to be Athletic Director Emeritus, but I can tell you my times working with Mike Hamilton at Tennessee were very, very special.
I appreciate that, Joan, very much. We did have
19 years?
19 years.
Ooh.
Hard to believe, right? Time flew.
Time flies when you're having a good time.
You know, I was thinking last night, you got to Tennessee in like 1983, right?
83, 84.
So now it's almost a 40-year association with the institution.
It's a long time.
You can write a book about that alone, I'm sure.
It's been special. It's been special.
Yeah, and I want to talk about some of our times at Tennessee, but where I want to start initially is it's a very significant anniversary this year, and that's the anniversary of the 50th anniversary of Title IX. And I know that when you were coming up as a young woman in Louisiana, you actually wanted to play baseball, and that was kind of interesting.
They wouldn't let me play. I knew what I wanted to do when I was 12, and I tried out. Our house connected. I grew up in Opelousas, Louisiana. It took me to the third grade to learn to spell it, but I wanted to play Little League Baseball, and I was as good as little boys in the backyard. You know, Barbara Mandrell's song that she was country before it was cool to be country.
Right.
Well, I was a tomboy before it was cool for women to be in sport, and I wanted to play. And I'll never forget that gentleman. He offered to let me be a scorekeeper, a manager, a cheerleader, assistant coach, but he wouldn't let me play. And at 12, I went home and said, I want to be in a business. I said business that helps women learn to compete.
Yeah.
And so I've been on, everybody said, Joan, you had a great career. I had a great journey. I got to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And you know, celebrating 50 years of Title IX right now, that's a long time. I got to do lots of interviews. I laughed and said I was the only person old enough and still could remember what happened. So I was the interview queen. But you know, when I think of Title IX, a reporter asked me, on this day, June 23rd, 50 years ago, what were you thinking? Well, to be real honest, I was 9.5 months pregnant. I had a 17-month-old child. I was teaching at Tennessee, had been coaching basketball at Tennessee. I was just surviving. So to say I said, oh man, this is going to be great, things are going to be wonderful, I was involved right there. But to look and watch it evolve over the 50 years, we have come a long way.
Right.
And it's so much fun to celebrate because people are now remembering, what about this, what about that?
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about some of the markers along the way. You know, there was the IAW and then obviously eventually the whole women's sports championship program came under the umbrella of the NCAA. And are there signature times during your career where you've said, okay, this was a big step and then this was another big step?
Well, obviously the AIW times were good. We set our own rules, but coming into the NCAA, we needed to do that, and it was the right thing to do, and we did it correctly. I get asked as you retire and get older, what are your favorite memories? What do you remember? And it's interesting because you all think it's going to be about a win or a game. In my case, it was the day we won our first national championship basketball. But what I remember was driving up in Texas, and the sign said, Final Four, women's Final Four, sold out.
Wow,
And that was a big day. And then the other big day, to catch it on with basketball, about 6 years later, Tennessee hosted a Final Four. And of course, being a little competitive, I wanted to beat Texas' record. So we had more seats, so we had sold more tickets. And Virginia uninvited us to our own Final Four. We lost to Virginia in triple overtime. And I can remember thinking, are people going to come? We've sold the tickets, but it wasn't, you know, Auburn was there, Stanford was there, Virginia was there, and Louisiana Tech. And I was really worried. And I walked down into Thompson Bowling Arena,
right, and
there were 22,000 people there. And I said, this is a mark. This has made a difference.
Yeah. So, you know, I kind of hate asking this question because it's very generalized, but so 50 years in, and you've been able to watch so much of this. there's certainly more to come.
Absolutely.
But how would you define progress at this point?
Well, you know, I'm not one that gets into stats. You like the numbers and remember
Yeah.
all the years. But, you know, I know Title IX is working, and I don't have to do stats. I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is get on an airplane, and I introduce myself. I'm Joan Cronan. I'm Athletic Director Emeritus at Tennessee. And if they smile, the next words out of their mouth are, I have a daughter, or I have a granddaughter who, and they go on to describe the athletic ability of their daughter or their granddaughter. Title IX is working when moms and dads, grandmoms and granddads want the same experience for their daughters and their sons, and that is happening.
Right.
But you know one quick thing,
Yeah.
because I'll lose my track. We talk about, you know, numbers and all of that, but what we have to talk about is opportunities for women.
Right.
And it's more than just playing the game. It's, you can't turn on television, there's not a whole lot of female reporters. You can't, 95% of the women sitting in the CEO offices or the C offices at Fortune 5 companies participate in athletics. So those opportunities have come out of opportunities to learn to compete.
No doubt. No doubt. And you and I have talked many times when we're working together, and even we were sharing a little bit of story last night. Tennessee, now I know we're biased, okay, so let me say that.
We like orange and
Yeah,
all of that
I know
stuff.
we're biased,
Yeah.
but Tennessee was really, I would say, an early adopter of what it meant to have a successful women's athletic program. And you were the leader of that program and instrumental of so much of what we became. And so, but you had to have administrative support to get there, right?
We did. You know, I've always said that Tennessee said yes before it was cool to say yes. And of course, we were lucky. We had a big football program. We had a lot of support. And we had men's and women's athletics supporting each other. And we had a focus. I had great people. And of course, we had Pat Summitt. And it was nice to have that icon. And you know, we talk about all the wonderful things Pat Summitt did, but Pat Summitt was a team player. And
Absolutely.
She wanted our softball team to be just as successful as our basketball team.
No doubt. Saw it many times over. So there's a neat little story about when Thompson Bowling Arena was being constructed in the mid-'80s. At the time, Tennessee had Stokely Athletic Center, which was in itself a great facility,
Absolutely.
over 12,000 seats. But yet we were building the facility on the river that was going to hold 25,000. And there was conversation about, hey, do the Lady Vols maintain their home at Stokely and have 12,000, 13,000 seats, or the possibility of moving? You want to share a little bit about that?
Sometimes you draw a line in the sand, and you think, was I right? I was athletic director at the College of Charleston. Tennessee asked me to come back and interview for the AD. I came in, and here's this new beautiful arena. It just happened to have 1,000 more seats in Kentucky. It wasn't that we were competitive or anything. And the president, the chancellor, and Pat Summitt said, Joan, we're going to play in Stokely. It's a great arena. Pat's thought process was, I won't have to worry about the men's scheduling. It'll just be mine, all of those type of things. And I said, no, you only get one chance to make a good first impression. And what they were all worried about was, could we fill it up? Was it going to be too big? And I said, if y'all want me to be AD, that's the first move we have to make. And the nicest note I ever got from Pat was simply after the first game, we played Texas, we sold it out, and she just simply said, you were right. And we went on, obviously, to lead the country in attendance, and that new arena was something good for us, and it was positive. So
no doubt.
That line in the sand worked out that time.
Yes. I imagine there were a few along the way. Let's talk about the Lady Vol brand for just a minute. You were very intentional about the development of the brand, the evolution of the brand, protection of the brand, and it's had tremendous meaning. It's known coast to coast, I would say worldwide.
Yeah.
Representing a certain, not only a certain institution, Joan, but a certain thought process, a certain kind of culture. And I know that the young women that came on our campus, you were very intentional about helping them to understand what it meant to be a Lady Vol. What does it mean to be a Lady Vol?
Well, I think it's a culture. And what we tried to do was develop a family culture, and we cared, and we wanted to be the best. And it was a culture of excellence, not only on the field, but in the classroom and in your life. And it's interesting because the brand itself, actually Pat and Gloria Ray and Terry Crawford designed it. Now, I put the blue in it even before they designed it, because I was women's basketball coach 1968 to 72, 68 to 70. And I'm in the office in Alumni Gym. The people don't know, it's an old gym, and there's a basement in it. And my office was in the basement of Alumni Gym, had a very small budget. I was coaching basketball. Women weren't playing much basketball. I got ready to order uniforms, and nobody were making Tennessee orange women's uniforms. So I could do white uniforms with orange letters, but I had no idea. So without a marketing study, without permission from anybody, I said, what color do you think looks good with Tennessee orange? And I said Carolina blue. And that was the blue that went into the eventual brand that we're still using.
Beautiful.
But it's an iconic brand. It stands, and I guess some people don't like the term lady, and we've had lots of discussions. I guess I've never minded anybody calling me a lady, and I think it stands pretty good.
Well, it's certainly, that brand developed its identity, right? And it certainly stands for something of significance in women's athletics. And
you know, I love to wear the Power Tee. I wear Power Tee and the Lady Vol logo in the correct, and it's been really good. And what I loved is how proud Pat was of that brand.
Pat. So let's talk about Pat.
Okay.
Taken much too early in life, obviously. You know, you obviously worked with her even more closely than I did. I had the benefit of working with her and you. I've talked today on some of these other podcasts about Dan Guerrero's relationship with John Wooden, you know, Graham Neff's relationship with Dabo Sweeney, Greg Burns' relationship with Nick Saban. This is your chance to talk about your friend, our friend, unbelievable colleague, one of the greatest coaches of all time in any sport,
Absolutely.
Pat Summitt.
Absolutely. You know, we'd go to places and Pat would say, this is Joan Cronan, this is my boss. And I'd always smile because we were partners in what we did together. And I always looked as my job as an athletic director to make her job as a coach the best it could be, to make the experience for the athletes the best it can do. But you know, what made Pat so special was, I mentioned she was a team player. And I'll never forget the night of her celebration of life. 96% of the athletes that she coached over those almost 40 years came back to that celebration. Talk about respect that was there. And I called a team meeting of all these athletes, and I said, you know, I don't think in your lifetime or mine we will ever meet anybody who has won more honors, done more for college athletics, done more for our community, done all of these things. But what I want you to remember, I don't think you'll ever meet anybody who was more humble than Pat Summitt. It was all about the team. It was all about the game. I mean, she would come in with ideas. We'd play crazy games back to back. Well, Pat, you sure you want to do this? Yeah, it's good for the game, Joan. It's good for the game.
Right.
And that's what she was all about. And so what a great person to work with. What a great joy it was for me. And it was a great job. I mean, you and I worked with Pat, you know, in all kind of exciting things, and she was always willing to take that extra step.
You know, I've got a picture that I have. I don't know that you know this, from the night where she won her 1,000th ball game, and you remember we had an on-court celebration, and there's a picture where she's up close to me, and I'm handing her the game ball, and I'll never forget it because that was her moment. And she,
and we surprised her.
Yes,
that was
exactly
really
right.
good.
Which you couldn't pull off surprise very easily with her. But she in that moment with 20,000 people applauding her and so forth, she said she wanted to thank me for my support of women's athletics, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, this is her moment, right? Yeah. But I think that back to her being a team player, she realized where she was as an institution, at the institution where she had been the coach, and the opportunity that had been provided. Now, she was amazing as a coach and a person, but part of it was she had the platform to be able to succeed like she was able to succeed.
Yeah, and
right?
it was because Tennessee said yes.
Right.
And she took it and ran with it, which was really, really good. I don't know of anybody that cared more about what she did or was more focused than about the game. I mean, the world could go around Pat, and I would say, Pat, we have this opportunity to do this. Well, I've got practice. I can't leave early. I've got to do this. She was focused on her team and her players incredibly.
You mentioned about her humility, and I would say I want to validate that as well. One of the things that I've told people is, she was Pat from Henrietta in most of the way she walked in life. But I also can remember, and I distinctly remember a time I was walking down the hallway in the arena where she was going to go meet with the Ford dealers of the state of Tennessee. And there were 50 or 60 Ford dealers in that room, and she was always on the fly, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, "Tell me who you got in the room.
Yeah.
What do you need me to say? What are we trying to accomplish here?" Right? And when she hit the door, it was like the President of the United States walking in, right?
Absolutely.
In terms of the respect that she garnered from the people in the room, but also she held everybody in that room in the palm of her hand in terms of her execution of what we needed her to do. So this humility of baling hay and growing up on a farm in Henrietta, but also she could walk in all halls. And the times that we were together at the White House, right?
Yeah.
And seeing how she handled, I remember President Bush and the conversations he had with her on a couple, it was clear that she had this rapport that carried across all spots.
Pat Summitt could have been governor. She could have been corporation president. She could have done anything she wanted on television, but she wanted to coach those young ladies, and she wanted to make them better. And that was really special. I get credit for hiring Pat. I didn't hire Pat, but I kept her, and we kept her, and that was really special. And that the fact that she didn't want to go anywhere else. She wanted to be at Tennessee, and she wanted to be a coach, and she wanted the team to call her Pat, which was interesting also.
So her legacy will continue forever. But one of the ways her legacy continues is the Pat Summitt Foundation. And I know you've been heavily involved in that since her passing. And obviously the notion there is to provide research and care around the horrific disease that is Alzheimer's. Can you tell me the progress that's being made with the foundation?
Absolutely. I'm fortunate enough to be the chair of the Pat Summitt Foundation. Peyton Manning is the honorary chair. And when she walked in my office and told me, we knew something was wrong, but we thought she was having some trouble with arthritis. We thought it was medication. But when she got tested and she walked in my office, I'll never forget that day, she told me what she had. She said, "I have early stages, dementia, Alzheimer's strand." Well, I had never dealt with Alzheimer's. And so I said, "Well, early stages is good." And she said, "No, Joan, that means I'm young." And then I said, "Well, we'll say you have dementia. That sounds better." And she said, "No, we'll say exactly what I have," which is what she said. And then she went on to say, "Joan, I want to form a foundation. And I want this foundation to work on research, and I want this foundation to work on how the caregivers and help the caregivers of this disease." So we formed the Pat Summitt Foundation, and I am so proud. We've opened the Pat Summitt Clinic at the University of Tennessee Hospital, and we are now getting ready to do a progress of what we're calling the Pat Summitt Game Plan of how caregivers can take care of themselves as well as the patient. And it's been a really, I know she would be proud. I know she would be proud.
No doubt. All right, so I've got a couple more things I want to talk to you about. One is athletic director jobs are busy jobs. And I'm not sure, the number of events that you and I have attended together, attended separately, and you're seemingly everywhere. In fact, I can remember distinctly going to games and very rarely did I ever see you sit down. You were usually shaking hands, kissing babies, hugging necks.
Should have run for office.
Yeah, I should have run for office. But how that extrapolated into the community is you have been an unbelievable citizen in Knoxville and our state. Very involved in FCA nationally. You chaired the United Way campaign, very involved in chamber activities, all those kind of things. I think that sometimes as athletic directors, you can't lose sight of the fact that at the end of the day, your fans are your community, and choosing the right way to engage with your community is meaningful. Not only because it's the right thing to do, but it also has an impact on your program.
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about your community engagement.
I think one of the things is, especially in the early stages, we were getting people, they were coming to the games, and everybody would say, "How are you doing it?" Well, I said, "You won't believe the places that Pat and I speak at. If there's 4 people, we'll speak." And
right.
I can remember one night we spoke at the Boy Scouts, and we sat down, and Pat's mother-in-law said, "Y'all can make the Lady Vols relate to anything, even the Boy Scouts."
Yeah.
And we wanted to sell our product. We had a great product. We wanted to sell. and you have to get people engaged. And this was something new. And one night I got home after a ball game, you're talking about what I did during a game, and Pat said, "Joan, we're getting ready to go into overtime and you're over there talking to people." And I said, "Pat, I can watch a game when I get home. I can't ask them for $1 million tomorrow. I need to ask it for them then."
Right.
So,
On
you know,
our
I think
spot.
we had to get engaged, and that was what we did, and that's the way we sold the program. And my favorite Bible verse is Luke 12:48. It says, "To whom much is given, much is required."
Yes.
And I believe in giving back. And I think all of us, we have a platform that we can use to give back to the people that need it.
That's great. Joan, recently, well, it's now been a handful of years, but the new volleyball training facility was named after you, and that was something that you had desired for so long. And you know, it's a name on a building, but I think more than a name on a building, it symbolizes the work that you did at the University of Tennessee and your care for the program. And I know that had to be an honor.
Absolutely, it was a great honor. You know, if we had, and you and I know, we tried to design a volleyball facility for so many years, and where can we put it, and how we can do it, and what can we do. So it's the most needed facility when it was built. So to have my name on it was really special. The street running up is the Joan Cronan Way, and the interesting thing was somebody said, well, a way has to be longer or shorter or something. It should be Joan Cronan Street. And some politicians fortunately said, we always did it the right way with Joan, so we want to call it Joan Cronan Way. So that's a really neat thing to have happen. So, you know, yeah, it was really an honor. University of Tennessee has been great. I love the title Athletic Director Emeritus because it keeps me involved.
Right.
It means I'm old, it means I smile more, and it means I don't have to make major decisions. But it's been great being here at NACTA. You know, NACTA to me has meant so much to our profession. It is the graduate school for athletic directors.
Right.
And to have 6,500 athletic professionals here this weekend has been really special.
You know, yeah, that's a huge number, right? I mean, I've been coming to NACTA, you know, probably since the late 80s or early 90s for sure, and I can't ever remember this many people congregated in one place that care about the purpose of student athletes and college
It's great
athletics.
to see. It's a great program, great things happen, and I think you and I both have benefited from what NACTA's done.
Right. So, this is your opportunity to challenge our industry on the things of the future. And, you know, I don't want to put you on the spot by any measure, but certainly you have seen this business grow and become what it is today from so many different perspectives. And I'm interested. Now you have the benefit of sitting back and watching.
Yeah, that's right.
Without having to be right in the middle of it every day.
Not digging the dishes.
Yeah. What are your observations, and what would you say you would tell those who are in this industry as a challenge to them?
First of all, I wrote a book, as you know, and it's called "Sports is Life with the Volume Turned Up." It's the lesson you learn from sports about life and business. What we have is such an opportunity to make a difference in the world. You know, you've got your athletes, you've got your coaches, you've got fans, and you can influence so many. I love Billy Graham said a coach could make more difference in 1 year than most people can make in a lifetime.
Right.
And so, you know, we've come a long way. We've got the platform, and you know, it's some tough times right now, but we'll figure it out, and we'll get the right model. What I want is a model that helps everybody. I want a model that we can continue to have a whole lot of people, 100,000 people at a football game and the 25,000 at basketball, but we can still have our tennis team and our golf team and all the other programs that make a difference. So I think, but we've got great people in this business. We've got great young athletic directors that I see coming up that I'm excited about. Right. So I think the future's bright. I think right now we've got the portal and the NIL and all of those conference alignment that we're dealing with, but we've dealt with other problems. We'll find a way.
So, take that one step further.
Okay.
We've talked about this being the 50th anniversary of Title IX. We've talked about your experience as that young 12-year-old young lady in Opelousas trying to play baseball. I said it right, didn't I?
You did really
Don't
well.
ask me to spell it.
Yeah.
There are women who have women that they need to and will want to look up to who have paved paths for them. You're one of those people.
Thank you.
Without a doubt. And so to the women in college athletics, the next generation of leaders who are females in this industry, offer them words of hope from what you've experienced.
You know, I think it's so important that you keep your values in the right spot. You know, I think we all talk about work-life balance. You know, I love to speak to groups, and women always ask that question. Men don't ask it as much. I want to go with there. Men and women ask that question. How do we balance our life? But I think the future is there. I think the opportunities, I don't think you can ever take it for granted. I love the opportunity that we're having now. Every day I open up the paper and another woman has had an opportunity to lead. And I don't want to ever take that for granted. And I also want us to be sure that all of us help each other. And I think that's what athletics, that's what a team's about.
Right.
And sometimes we take competitiveness too far. I mean, I love being in the SEC. We're so competitive, but yet, you know, when we would go to Destin to the meeting, we're all best friends.
Right.
We walk away from here and we feel like that our competitors are our friends, and they really are, because we're trying to do the same thing. We want to help the young people of America.
Yeah, and look, I'm going to go back to the work balance question, narrative for a second. Somebody told me that it really needs to be thought of as work-life integration. You know, think about the nuance, right? Integration versus balance. And I think there's some truth to that, right?
I kind of like that, because, you know, I mean, I remember the day you walked in my office and told me about the adoptions that you were doing, and you were going to have to buy a bus because you went from 2 kids to 5, and I said, whoa. And but you know, we both had our families as part integrated into our lives. Our kids, you know, the trips that they got to take, the opportunities to be around the athletes, that's you can integrate life and work.
Right.
I really believe that.
Look, time has flown. We could continue talking, and this would become Old Home Week, and eventually the folks who listen would turn it off.
That's
because
right.
we'd be sharing Tennessee stories, and we need to do that over a Diet Coke. We don't get to see each other nearly as frequently as we should, with me being in Nashville and you being in Knoxville. But just to say publicly how much I appreciate you being on, but even more so than that, it's not just about this 30 minutes we spent together. It's a friendship now that has been 30 years, and we've seen a lot of good times.
Yes, and we're going to continue to see a lot
right.
of good times. And you know, when I think about what we're all about, I think about one of Pat's favorite saying was left foot, right foot, breathe. And I think right now we need to talk about the positive rather than the negative in our world, because there's so many. We've got so many great coaches. We've got so many great kids. We've got so many of us doing the right thing the right way. And I love being on the show. I love the journey of an athletic director, and what a joy.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you joining me, Joan. And I was speaking of positivity. My 30 years of working with you and alongside you and being your friend have all been positive. So
well, let's make it work.
Look forward to many more years of that as well.
Thank you.
All right. This is Joan Cronan. She's the Athletic Director Emeritus at the University of Tennessee. I'm Mike Hamilton, and we'll see you next time.